So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Trace Indy Coffee Conversations. I have been trying to nail down this person for a long time because she's busy. She runs the Speakeasy. So a lot of you might know her. She's a mom. Momming is hard. She's doing all the things. So we finally got her. I'm so excited. Julie Heath, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. I can't promise to be lucid because I've had insomnia is my battle. Everyone has a battle in their life. Insomnia is mine. So last night was not a great night. And so if I stop in an awkward way, that's just me having like a moment.
To be honest, I can edit whatever I want. So it's so fine. You're good. Dude,
Make me sound good.
That's the hardest thing is we just showed up, right?
That's right.
Whether that's
we're here
to a workout, to an interview, like we just got to show up.
Yep.
So you are the executive director of the Speakeasy. I'm a member. You are a sponsor. This is a beautiful, beautiful thing. You are a transplant to Indianapolis. You got here in 2016. You were bi-coastal, right? Grew up West Coast, if I remember that correctly. California.
Yep.
Did I get that right? Yes, I knew that. Grew up on the West Coast, and then professional career on the East Coast. So I know you did work in DC and in Pennsylvania and Philly. How'd you get here? Let's actually reverse some of my questions. How'd you get here?
To Indy, right?
Yeah, to this
rather to today. Okay.
I got time. I got a whole pot
I
of
already
coffee.
forgot why I came in here, right? To Indy, my partner was finishing up a PhD program and was doing those all-day interviews where they fly you in and put you up in a hotel and have you talk to 432 people. Yeah. And I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to all the different ones, but I noticed this one because he came back and was really excited. I could tell he was energized, and I said, "Excellent." And I was wrapping up my work in Philly. And I said, "Okay, where was this one?" He said, "Eli Lilly." Okay, where's that? Indiana. Got it. So
where's that?
Right. I went to the good old address book, and Indianapolis. I knew one person. I called him up. I knew him I hadn't talked to him in maybe 5 or 6 years, but I knew him from like my first job, and said, "Guess where we're moving." You don't want to be my only friend. How do we fix that?
I love it. I mean, I will admit, I came here in 2001, and I did the exact same thing. Like, wait, where's Indiana? Where's Indiana? Because you just, some people just don't know. And I don't want to blame that on public education. When you're sometimes on a coast, you kind of know all the coast, and the middle is a little mushy. Yep. Okay, so let's backtrack real fast to tell everyone.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Fair. Well, actually, it relates to that last story, because when I said, "You don't want to be my only friend, how do we fix that?" He said, "Join the Speakeasy." And I thought, I'm joining a bar. I like this place already. And he said, "No, it's this homegrown co-working space for entrepreneurs." And that's what it is. It was Indiana's first co-working space for entrepreneurs. And so I got to know it as a member, because I'd say half the members here are entrepreneurs and half are remote workers and consultants and freelancers. So getting to live the value proposition of this community, which happens to have a building, was what I did first. And I think of it as my port of entry to the city, because this is where I made my friends. This is where I got to meet a bunch of great young companies that were just getting started. I found my first job through the connections here. It just checked off every box for getting plugged in fast. And as a trailing partner, I think I was aware of the research that trailing partners not plugging into the new location was the #1 reason for relocation failure in corporate settings. So I was hell-bent on getting plugged in, and I just didn't know how I would do it. So finding my way immediately to the Speakeasy was a blessing.
Oh, I love that. So we kind of hit the how you got there. I want to hit on, because there's so many things that you do, and I have this whole list in my head, and hopefully I can pull some of them out that make sense for this conversation. But one of those things that you touched on was not just the trailing spouse, but moving, right? Just being an expat. So something that you have started at the Speakeasy, which is amazing. And every time I meet someone new, I'm like, hey, there's this thing. Let me send you this email. you've started a group for expats, right? So basically, it's not just meeting someone new for coffee. It's where do you find a doctor and where do you get a hairdresser and all those things. So can you talk about that and why that was important and how that's going?
Yeah. So the hard part, I think, was feeling like I had others who I could talk to about that relocation process, because when you don't have any friends or family in your new location, it's emotionally draining to try to get plugged in and build up that support system. So I accidentally found a few others who had moved across the country or across the globe to Indy. And I said, we should make these coffees a little less accidental. So we started a new to Indy meetup. And internally we called it the expat support group, just because there's cultural shifts, there's language shifts, there's, actual like know-how that you have to figure out when you land here. Like I drive an old jalopy. I need a good mechanic who I can trust. And so you have to have the community to ask those questions too. So we decided to, even though we had it at the Speakeasy, we decided to double down and say, no, we're going to intentionally meet and welcome others who are feeling new or like they need to plug in.
I love that. So let's go from plugging in, finding community to it has been a year, right? And I actually can't wait till I actually don't know how I'm going to segue maybe in another year, that question of like, it's been a year, right? And so I might have to come up with something new at some point. But like, where have you found, one, you're running a non-for-profit in a pandemic, which is tough, and you're running a brick and mortar in a pandemic, which is tough, right? And the gig economy. So you are very much tethered to all these other factors. And that shit's hard. So where have you found, I might have just teed up your entire struggle, but like for you, sorry, everybody, conversation over, Jillian just did it. Where have you found that, that true struggle? And you're also a mom, and we all homeschooled, and, some went in and some didn't. So where's some of that struggle, but also really like, where have you found, my favorite is, where have you found some of that joy and delight?
Yeah, it's such a good question. Our core value proposition is as a gathering place, and that's what was prohibited during a pandemic. So to say it was hard to run this thing is the understatement, of the century for me. And what I found, and this goes to the delight question, is that people still need community, and you still need to have a sense of belonging. And often we talk about like having your cheers, like where do you go where someone knows your name and you're also going to meet someone new, guaranteed. It's built in. So running an entrepreneur support organization that is a gathering place, that is that supportive community, is I guess when everything points to this will fail, you figure out what that core strength is, and either it makes you survive or it doesn't. And in this case, that need for community, that need for connection, for camaraderie, it buoyed us. We had, I think the English language needs a phrase for a perfect storm of awesomeness. Like we need
we'll come up with that, crowdsourcing.
Right. So that's what happened. That core value proposition of a supportive group of humans who want to help each other succeed, like that's what got us through. And so it just kept showing up in new ways, like emergency fundraiser. All right, you want this to be here after the pandemic? We need your help. So I like to say, thanks to 300 of our closest friends, we survived.
But it's important because, and one thing we haven't kind of talked about, we talked about it a little bit, but some of the things that the Speakeasy, the value is, and forgive me if I say this completely wrong, but my brain is still kind of pulling all these thoughts together, because the Speakeasy is so many things, right? It's startups, and it's community space, and it's community people, and it lifts people up. and it pushes people forward, and it just does so many things. Can you give just a snippet of like what the Speakeasy does in your mind?
Yeah. Well, I think maybe most helpful is to say it's really small. We have 2 full-time employees, and we're both moms, so we can hit on that in surviving the pandemic. Because we're so small, like our entire operating budget is about $350,000 a year. So we are grassroots, we're community-based. And so we don't, when we say we provide the conditions for people to start something, it's quite literally finding what people need to start something that isn't money, right? Because we don't have a lot of money. So we ask clarifying questions like, okay, pretend I'm dropping $700 in your bank account, your new business bank account, and you have to use it this week to move your business idea forward. How are you spending it? Because your answer to that question is telling me where you're hitting a friction point. And I'd say 85% of the time we do this question, the answer is, I need to find someone to show me how to fill in the blank, or I need someone to fill in the blank. It's almost always know-how. And so what the Speakeasy does is it creates the conditions for know-how via know-who, because whatever your answer is, I'm going to go find one of these other 230 people to help sit down and talk you through that. And this is where like the secret sauce of the Speakeasy comes into play, because there's this ethos of, I call it the impulse toward neighborliness. And I credit Kit Malone with that phrase. When I landed here, I met her and I thought, yep, that's what I'm experiencing. There's this impulse toward neighborliness, which ends up meaning that when I ask someone else to sit down with you, the entrepreneur, to like walk through that thing that you would normally spend $700 on, we leapfrog that money and we get you straight to the solution, or at least the person who can teach you how to think through that problem set. And that know-how through know-who combined with the cheers effect is what's so powerful, because that's not transactional, and it's not a one-time event, because now, I mean, the unwritten rules of the Speakeasy are leave it better than you found it, and say hello to someone you don't know, which means every time one of those things happens where someone else helps you move through that friction point, there's value created for you. You have moved your business forward without spending anything. And so that idea of value creation without it being monetized is actually really critical in terms of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial ecosystems. It's when I think about community building and enabling entrepreneurs, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that helping each other out, and there's a surplus, but it's not measured in money, it's measured in goodwill. So we have this system where the surplus, the positive externality, if we're using economic speak, is goodwill. That's what's magical, and that's what the Speakeasy is. That's what it does.
And I love that, because I think when people hear a co-working space, they can think of something, and I'm not saying this is a negative to you, like this super beautiful, like super plush, lots of all these things. Like the Speakeasy is not that.
No,
I would never.
We're always just a little bit broken.
Yeah, like I would never walk in and go, this place is gorgeous.
Yeah,
but it is buzzing, and that's what I really like. And this is definitely not a Speakeasy ad, but like there is something different with just needing a place to go in, right? Because you and I have had this conversation. I work from home now; it's brand new to me, or for a year, and I don't need a co-working space, right? Like I can do calls from home. I do this from home. Like I don't need a co-working space. But what I will pay for and do pay for monthly is community. And that is invaluable to me. One, is someone who wants to share stories of women, but two, just being around other human beings. And that's something that I feel like other co-working spaces, not all of them, really just don't. It really is your secret sauce. Like it's really, really fantastic. Again, I'm not saying that this is not an ad for the Speakeasy. I'm just saying, y'all check it out. Okay. So we've talked about, community and your community. And So with my community, those listening or watching, you know, how can the Indy community or beyond, you know, how can the community show up?
Yeah. I think it's that willingness to say hello to someone you don't know.
Scary. We forgot how. We've been shut off.
Right. And I mean, it can happen here. Like come to 1 Million Cups, come to Creative Mornings, come to one of the Trace Indy events, right? Come to an event and say hello to someone that you don't know. That's the number one way we can show up for each other and lift all of us, because we know, watch, I'm going to show my nerd. We know that idea flow is strongly correlated with good economic outcomes, whether it's measured in GDP or entrepreneurial ecosystems. Idea flow happens when you talk to new people. And so that would be my ask, is show up and talk to someone you don't know.
Oh, I love you. Okay. So you ready? Big question.
Yeah.
Here we go. I know.
Yep.
Same face. Everyone makes it. So Julie Heath, how are you going to leave your trace?
Yeah. What's my epitaph on my tombstone? I hope it says she left it better than she found it.
Yeah.
Because I have to anchor in that core value of mine. I'm, professionally, I've had this thread, which is I'm only ever hired when there's something to launch or something to fix. So if we were
that is a beautiful skill set.
Because if you look at the content of my work, or like the organizations where I've worked, it looks like what? But when you're launching something, or you're turning something around, you have to have some emotional runway and take it in bite-sized chunks. So I always come back to, did I leave it better than I found it just today in some way? And so that's the trace. And I hope I can do it for my city in a systemic way. So it's enabling everybody who needs to be enabled, who has an ambition to create something.
Julie, thank you so much. I mean, you've left me better than you found me.
You're welcome.
So I'm just really grateful for you, and I'm grateful for our friendship, but I'm just really grateful, for the work that you do in the space that you create for a lot of people that really need it. So I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for showing up this morning. You showed up. We had coffee. It was amazing.
Sleep deprived moms and all. We're just going to keep showing up.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.